You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology. Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. We have a very special guest. If you don't know Matt Heinz from Heinz Marketing, he's one of the brilliant minds when it comes to sales and lead management. He's also a genius when it comes to marketing and technology. Matt, thanks so much for being a part of the show today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
You know, one of the things that comes to mind when working with inside sales, you know, you've got maybe perhaps a marketing department that's trying to generate leads for you, and as an inside sales professional prospecting, trying to go out and acquire new business, where do you see being the biggest kind of bang for the buck where a company can leverage?
Well, I mean, there's so many different factors involved there, right? I think, one is, you got to, whether you have inbound leads or whether you have a sales team that's working the phones, and you have to have a good list. You have to have, access to the right people that are going to be able to sort of move the ball forward for you. I think, having the right list assumes that you also know who you're selling to. It assumes that you know how to speak to them. So I think underlying everything across sales and marketing in terms of pipeline building is knowing your audience and knowing the story you need to be telling at the top of the pipeline when you're trying to reach them. It's not about selling your product or service. It's about selling the outcome your customers care about. How do you ensure that marketing is telling that story? That marketing is helping your customers understand the cost of a problem that they may or may not have known that they had? And how do you ensure that the sales team is able to have that conversation at the beginning of the process as well, so that they're building trust and rapport and building value well before they get into talking about what your product and service is? So, honestly, underlying all of this, you can talk about productivity across the sales floor. We can talk about inbound leads versus outbound phone calls. But knowing your audience, knowing your customer, knowing how to speak to them, knowing how to sort of build progression of the story you need to tell, that's foundational.
Yeah, what would you say to be, would you say that prospecting for new business would be more effective than marketing, or does it kind of depend on industry? Does it depend on the customer type? Well, what do you see?
It all works, honestly. Like I think that, the economics and scalability of driving inbound leads for marketing is typically better. And it doesn't always happen overnight, right? If you've got a cold list, even if you've got a great message with a cold list, they don't know you. They're not used to hearing from you. They're not used to hearing value from you. We've taught, as an industry, our prospects to distrust all of us and to think we're all just trying to sell them something. So, it's going to take time to sort of warm up a list, whether you're marketing or cold calling. But if you understand the story your customers need to hear, if you understand how to build value in that first call, and oftentimes whether it's an email for marketing or whether it's a cold call from a salesperson, I'll say, you need your prospect to, at the end of that interaction, lean back in their chair and say, boy, I would have paid for that information. I would have paid for that insight I just generated, I just received. And so you can generate that in a cold call. You can generate that in an unsolicited email. You can generate that in a number of different ways. So I think put another way, I think it's an excuse if you say, well, we don't have enough leads, so we can't sell. Or, well, cold calling doesn't work anymore, so we're not going to use that. It does work if you have the right message to the right audience that actually builds value for them.
Yeah, and looking at that language that maybe the customer would give, which is probably part of their story, that's something that the sales professional would see in those day-to-day conversations and having appointments, et cetera. Well, in working with a marketing team to make sure that the marketing has the right language, rather than just built off of assumptions or built off of their pre-analysis, how do you get the sales team to talk better with the marketing team so that you are sharing the same message across?
Well, so it's a great question. And I think, it comes from a couple ways. One, when we do new sales training, we tend to focus a lot on our company and our products and not enough on the customer. Good salespeople, the better they understand the customer, the better they understand their issues, the better they understand that story we need to tell them, the more likely they're going to have the right natural conversations. That doesn't preclude you from doing good training, right? Make sure your sales team understands the customer. Make sure they understand the progression of how they're going to buy, how they're going to engage, how they're going to prioritize solving this problem in the first place, and then give them opportunities to practice. I mean, for a lot of sales reps, having that upfront conversation that isn't about product or service isn't something they've done a lot of.
Yeah.
So you have to practice, you have to do role playing, you have to make sure people feel comfortable with it. Secondarily, I think it is actually marketing's responsibility to own the story. And what I mean by that is I think marketing needs to understand the customer, needs to understand the progression they go through when they're thinking about buying and when they're actively buying. Marketing needs to make sure that there's continuity of that story and that message across the website, the marketing materials, and the sales conversations. So it's a component of what I think of as sales enablement, right, which is sort of a more strategic way of saying sales ops. But sales operations historically has been a reactive administrative role. I think it is a very proactive strategic role today. And I think marketing plays a big role in that. And a big part of that is the right content in the right place at the right time. And that content, most of that content doesn't have to do with your product or service. Most of it has to do with building value at the top of the pipeline.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And if we add on that third layer with the technology side of things, sometimes technology or IT, whatever you want to call it, will give the sales team some tools to be able to use, and sometimes there's challenges in that. And then also getting the marketing to be able to communicate through the technology can also be another layer. How can you see the technology side integrate into the ops so that it's a little bit more streamlined process rather than creating this unnecessary friction?
Well, technology is an enabler, right? I mean, I think too many people think of technology as the strategy, and I think oftentimes, especially on the sales floor, people think of technology, so the tail's wagging the dog, so to speak, where we choose these interesting technologies and don't think about how that fits into our strategy. So before you worry about technology, you need to understand, what's my strategy? How do I sell? Where are the gaps in the way I'm selling today? Where are the roadblocks? Where are the things that take too long or are predictable, repeatable that I can automate or semi-automate? And those are the places where you can apply technology. So I think, first of all, you have to have the right strategic approach to how you look at technology and how it supports you. But then, ideally, when you're looking at what marketing and sales are doing together to identify the right technology, it's creating more scalability, it's creating more productivity, it's automating the predictable, repeatable portions of the process that allow salespeople to spend more time selling and less time on whatever the tactical stuff is that technology can automate for us. I think, I've heard some people say, think of it like this. If a robot can do it, if a robot can smell it and understand it and do it, then that's an opportunity for technology. Your salespeople should not be acting like robots, right? It drives me nuts sometimes marketing says, well, I've got our sales team, let's just make it so that they're coin operated. They know exactly what to do every time. If it was that easy to sell, holy crap, we wouldn't have sales teams, right? So I think the focus is, again, also, what does your sales team need to do? What can your salespeople do individually? And what can technology do to support that?
Well, in looking at being able to examine that process, what would you say to be some key metrics to look at that would start to help you decide which area to explore further?
Well, I think active selling time's one. I think I don't know who's coined that phrase. I think I heard it first from Serious Decisions. Measuring the amount of time sales teams spend actively selling and identifying not only the percent of time that they're spending on activities that are not active selling activities, but also what are the primary culprits of that? And so the places I tend to see around that is, it's just, time in CRM. The less time reps spend in CRM, the better. So there's an awful lot of automation and an awful lot of technology that can support not only what CRM needs to have from a reporting standpoint, but pull out what reps actually need, to be more successful and to spend more time actively selling. I think communication tools for sure. There's a variety of tools that are not only helping to prioritize prioritize who you're calling and why, but also to give you better intelligence in terms of who's interacting with your content, not just who's opening your email, right? But who's engaging with your content, where are they getting stuck, where are they spending the most time, what does that imply about the next conversation you should have with them? So I think, insight, intelligence, and customization of the message that prospects are getting on their own, but also the message that you're sharing with them and the conversation you're having with them in the next interaction. Technology plays a huge, huge role in helping us with that.
Well, Matt, you obviously practice with your preach. You've got a one hell of a newsletter. I encourage everybody to go and sign up for that. I think you've got over 35,000 people who get it on a regular basis, and you pull in a lot of great things, and also have some thought leadership around some of the things that are really changing the way we sell. So appreciate the hard work you put into that.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a lot of fun.
You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show, hosted by Doug DeVitri. your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology.
Another person to join early. Well,
if you're familiar with Google Plus, how to do a Hangout, or even like join.me and some of the other screen sharing things I've seen.
Oh, congratulations!